All right. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Training Cox. I am for the win with the Flow Telegram group. We represent the Flow community, and I'm here today with Joseph Fiscella, the lead developer of Flow and a man of many talents. Joe, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Channing.
Well, thanks for joining us. This is going to be pretty informal, just some questions and answers, and maybe some good conversation here. I've got a wide range of topics, going from you personally and your personal history, moving forward to kind of like the history of Flow and how you got involved, and then what you're currently working on, and what the current and future of Flow, uh, what you see going forward. So let's go ahead and jump in. I was looking over your LinkedIn CV, and it looks like you started back in. Let me see here. We'll go all the way back. We'll go deep. You were a junior teacher at Summer Tech in 2005, teaching C++ to day campers. So how did you first come to realize that you wanted to be involved in software development?
I think it actually starts from before I was born because my mom worked for IBM for 10 years, from the time she was 18 to 28, and then she had me. So I'm just assuming that it's in my blood. And she also bought me a computer, a PC. I think she brought home one of those early IBM computers. I mean, it had like a yellow text on a dark green background. If anyone else is as old as I am and remembers that type of PC, that was kind of like my first experience with computing, and I kind of started learning how to use a computer at a young age and learned how to program when I was 10 or 11 years old. And I made my first video game when I was 11 years old. I made a Frogger game. Also, if anyone remembers the game Frogger, basically you try to cross the street and then cross a river and get to the other side without getting hit by a car or without drowning. So I made that game when I was very young in the Q basic language, one of the earliest programming languages out in like the 90s. So I've just been doing it forever. And then, yeah, in 2005, I was a teenager. There was a program at a local college where they would teach little kids how to use the computer and program. And as a teenager, I was teaching them C++ and Photoshop and web design and things like that. It was pretty fun. And then I went to college for computer science. I got a software engineering degree, and I've just been doing that ever since. I've been a programmer pretty much my whole life.
So when you're in college and you're getting your software engineering degree, do you have like a focus, or is it just like a general study of everything you may need to know?
You study a lot of academic topics, I would say. They give you a very broad focus. There are some focus classes as well that are more technical. I went through 3 years of database classes, and in the senior year, we had a capstone engineering project, which for me was implementing some data structures in C, and then we also had another project which was uh, analyzing the memory map of running programs in Java. So it's pretty cool stuff. But yeah, I would say from a college standpoint, like if you're just getting a college undergraduate degree in programming, you're mostly learning academic and theoretical uh, concepts, and you're not going too far deep down into like one specific area. I did have a number of projects that I worked on in college that were unrelated to classes, though. Like, for example, I made a forum and a website, uh, like a news website and database and a blog for a video game that was coming out. So I had some experience building web pages and building communities and building databases and things like that, just in my own time.
Okay, nice. So if you were going to give advice to somebody maybe who was in college and wanted to one day be a CTO of a blockchain based services company such as yourself, and we'll talk about Streambed here in a little bit. But what piece of advice would you give to somebody who is maybe just figuring it out that that's where they want to go?
I would say, it's the classic cliche advice of just doing it. But focus on something that you're interested in because your brain will automatically put more cycles towards figuring it out, and try to give yourself goals that are reachable, that have actual deadlines. For example, when we were coming out with this video game website, we downloaded the alpha version of the game, and we had someone from the community decompile the database and figure out how it was working, and he kind of reverse engineered how it looked, and it turned out to be a weird type of zip file that was pretty popular in Korean MMORPGs. So he was able to uncompress or decompress and unzip this file and found all the items and all the descriptions of the items. So we had the first database for this game, and things like that where like you're running against the clock. And we were rushing to get the database out and the website launched before the game launched, so that we would have like the first fan site and the first like resource for people.
Sure.
That's something that I would say you can kind of like get into, looking into where things don't exist already and trying to come up with something useful before anyone else is able to execute on it. That's where I've had most of the success in the past, and people also that use these things, they'll appreciate it and they'll remember that you provided that service, and they'll remember the good work that you've done. So yeah, just try to think of something that you have interest in, that you're kind of filling a gap or a need in the marketplace, but also something that requires your skill to come into fruition. So that's what I've been doing for many years, and it seems to work out. And at the very least, it'll be a learning experience, even if it doesn't go anywhere. Like our website never went anywhere. We never ended up putting a lot of time into it, but it was a great learning experience.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Well, that's a good bridge to kind of move us into flow. So I had done a little bit of research on my own, and I was able to go. If you can find the Flow Bitcoin ANN forum thread, and you can see where Sky Angel releases Florin coin back then, and it wasn't very long. I mean, it was within, I want to say, a couple of hours, or if not, it was within days that you appear on the forum and you make your first like flow related statement on the web, I assume. And at that time, what was it that really captured you in regards to flow? What was it that got you in the beginning?
At that time, I was mining with my parents had 48 solar panels in their house, and I was just converting sunlight into bitcoins, basically. Although at the time I was speculative mining like coins and all new coins that were coming out with the script algorithm. So I was just constantly refreshing the Bitcoin Talk page to see if anything new or interesting popped up. And I had also thought that there was a need in the market for a generalized protocol for metadata and messaging on chain, and that there wasn't a solution to that. And this is back in 2013 when Flow was launched. And I saw that someone posted, Flow new script coin came out with metadata. This is something that was super interesting to me. So yeah, within a few hours, I actually had TeamViewer set up on my PC in like 2 hours away at my parents' house, and I switched all my miners over to mining Flow. So I got into the community very early on. I checked out some of the code that was written, and there were some improvements that could be made to the RPC, for example. And I had written a pull request to fix some of the stuff and add some features, and SkyAngel actually merged it into the project. So I was able to get involved very early, and it was just right in line with what I thought was like a good idea. And I had so many ideas. I actually had written about like 30 pages in my notebook of ideas that we could actually launch with Flow or with something like Flow if there was a messaging component to a blockchain project. So that's kind of like where it started, and it was just fortuitous, I think. And I just happened to be like at work online at the time and looking through the forum, so I was able to get involved very quickly and learn how the community could grow and kind of contribute to it.
Nice. So what is flow? If you had to do like a very succinct summary, how would you describe what is flow?
I would say think of something like a torrent tracker. Think how when you go to a torrent website, you have all of these pieces of content, and somewhere someone on their computer has a list of all of those links to those files. And one of the problems we have with torrents, and one of the problems that we have with data in general, is that these lists get lost and they get taken down. And data permanence and data longevity is something that we can solve with the blockchain, because we have incentives that are matched with people who are hosting this data, and it can live for a very long time if the incentive structure is figured out properly. And that's one of the ideas behind Bitcoin, is that you have this blockchain where the miners are incentivized to host it and they're incentivized to secure it. And what I would want is, and what I really did want, was something that could be similar to Bitcoin, where you have a currency system and a metadata system that are both incentivized to be long lasting and ever present and accessible, and with 100% uptime. And Flow's existed for almost, I think it's 8 years now, and it's had 100% uptime. So something like that is really, really valuable, especially when it comes to thinking about how we use data and how we think about data, and how metadata is so important for search, and how it's so important for content indexing. And content is really what the internet is used for these days. I mean, think about Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter. You're just posting either like a very short snippet of words, or like a clip show, or something like with pictures or something like that. And to be able to search through that and find that content very easily is something that's extremely valuable. And even today with Twitter, it's hard to search through Twitter. It's hard to find, like, if you lose a tweet, it's almost impossible to find it again. So I think that metadata is a very, very important concept, and control over the metadata is super important as well. I mean, Google and Twitter have a lot of criticism in the way that they handle their search, and they handle their indexing, and they shadow ban people, and they change the search results, and it's just not a good situation for anyone to be in, that has where we have like this control over the search index, and we have control over the flow of information that's concentrated in a handful of companies that are within like a 40 square mile radius in California. I just think it's a terrible thing, terrible situation for the whole world to be at the whim of these big data companies who are so concentrated in their viewpoint and have such a high degree of power over that metadata index. So yeah, I think that it's extremely important that Flow and something like Flow exists to give this democratization or decentralization of metadata indexing to the world. And I think that people will start realizing that when we start coming out with some of the new stuff that we're working on.
Excellent. What does the open index protocol, how does that factor into how Flow would serve to meet that need within society of creating this metadata index that is searchable and available for everyone?
Yeah, so OIP is a standard that lives on top of Flow. So when you think about, you can put any type of data into Flow. You can write hello worlds. One of the first applications that I actually made was a Valentine's Day application, where you can write like a love letter or something nice to someone that you care about, and it's going to live forever on the blockchain. And that was to kind of give people the idea that this is something that's long lasting, and it plays to the strengths of the blockchain. So you can write and do whatever you want with Flow. One of the things that's powerful is organizing data. So if you think about, if we were going to actually make an index of metadata that points to content on the web and make that into a blockchain, and how do we combine all the concepts of private keys and public keys and hashing and signatures, and then how do we structure the data? That's what OIP is. So you have a standard a standard protocol that tells you how to put data in and how to read data out of the blockchain, such that it can be very quickly used for content, but also has all the advantages of having this public-private key pair, and having the hashes, and having everything that we use in crypto to be able to prove that data exists, and prove that someone created that content, and show that it existed at a certain time because it's time-stamped in a block, and then the miners are verifying all this. So yeah, it brings the concept of blockchain to content creation and to data indexing and to metadata. So I would say that OIP is the forefront and the front runner for a standard for making the vision that I was talking about just a second ago, making that actually happen.
So Streambed is a company that you are a founder with, and that you are continuing to work with. And the goal, my understanding of Streambed, which is also managed by Jenna Program and Michael Casey, but that you all are trying to make it so that users and platforms, companies can help facilitate social media posts and track them across different platforms by indexing these various posts from Twitter or YouTube or whatever content upload platform you're working with. All these things can be indexed into the FLO blockchain using OIP. And Streambed has put together a service that they're offering to companies and users on that will allow us to better maintain tracking those tweets. So you had mentioned losing a tweet, or the applications really become interesting as we get these new possibilities. To me, it reminds me of how when you would get a new computer, or maybe you would go from like a Super Nintendo to a Nintendo 64, the power of the machine was like a leap in magnitude, and it would take us years to figure out how to fully utilize all these new tools. And I see Streambed as being a leader in the technical process of making it so that these things are trackable, and that we can then create an economy around individualized data and being able to track who reposted what. But just going more into Streambed, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of that, and just tell me about how Flow and OIP are integrated into the future of what Streambed wants to bring.
So Streambed is first and foremost a data company, and it's situating itself to be successful in a world where decentralization of power is happening. So if you think about Kanye tweeting his what was it, his agreement that was, from his perspective unfair, and his criticism of artists and how they're treated in the music industry, Streambed is a tool to regain that power for the individual artist to be able to create and promote and distribute their content directly to their fans. And then also retain more ownership of their content. So what Streambed does is it allows you to take a social media account, connect it to Streambed, and then be able to post what you want online, and also have like a gauge of how far that content goes, and have a true ownership of that content. And we're achieving that through Flow and the Open Index protocol by giving each content creator a public-private key pair that's hosted on the FLO blockchain, and then it gives you a signature of the data that you've posted. So in the example of a music artist, they would post some music to their Twitter or post it onto Instagram, and then that would be on the back end proven on the blockchain, and they would have full control over that data. They would have control over who gets to have access to it, etc. And Flow is used on the back end as that metadata index.
Very nice. So what are some of the other potential use cases, or where do you see Flow going in the next couple of years?
I think in the future we have Flow as a base layer for protocol for all these things, as well as a middleware that's used for Oracle applications and things within Web3. So if you think about the proliferation of Web3 and how people are connecting with different blockchains and connecting their profiles and accounts, trading different cryptocurrencies and being involved in this new kind of economy that you were talking about, where everyone's trading different things, they have different assets that they're owning, and everything is underneath their own wallet, and they're self-hosted, self-custodied solutions. We need a way to search through this, and we need a way to organize this data and to have it very applicable to applications like dApps and different front ends that give you an interface to what you're working with on the web. And all this is very new. Web3 is just taking off. I mean, people are learning about MetaMask and other wallets. And we want to bring Flow to Web3. So the best way to do that is to make it live on different chains like Avalanche, like Ethereum, like Polkadot, all of these things that are kind of becoming this norm these days to start trading on decentralized exchanges and get involved in DeFi, and people are learning how they can get better rates than traditional finance and do better things like, for example, NFT marketplaces where you can trade art on the blockchain and you can trade music on the blockchain. And this is all becoming more mainstream, and it's kind of taking off as of this year, especially now that people are realizing that they can gain a lot of value from things that are digital. Whereas I don't think that the human experience was really focused on that until 2020. But we are moving more towards that direction. I think even recently it's accelerated in that way. So we're able to provide this value with Flow by giving a metadata index and making this let's say this standard for indexing the data and being able to search through the data and being able to prove that the data is owned by certain content creators and owned like in custody by people that actually own it in a decentralized fashion. And this is going to become more and more relevant these days as people are learning that the institutions that exist and the existing market that has like monolithic tech companies like Google and Facebook owning all of your data, and monolithic like hedge fund companies and banks owning your money, that's a completely outdated concept and can be completely replaced with decentralized technology like Flow and like Web3.
Alexandria was a project that you were involved with many years ago, and they had kind of put forth an idea of being like that, the entrance into the library of Web3. And so in a way, I know they would describe it as similar to the Dewey Decimal System. That was the kind of the role that they wanted to facilitate. And so to me, that sounds a lot like going right at Google and the search index. And so, do you think that vision of where the regular user can just go out and search the index for any piece of content without being guided or restricted, is that going to be possible in Web3?
Absolutely. And we want to remove as many access barriers as possible and make the whole thing decentralized and open source. And the reason that things have to be open source is because then there's no way that anyone has control or ownership over the data flow and communication. So I hate to say it, but Stallman was right. If you don't own the code that you're running and it's not free, as in freedom, then you're not going to have ownership of that. And they're just the people that control those things, and the entities that have control over that data will always use it against you to gain more value.
So I've got a couple other questions here from some of people that sent in questions to me to ask you. So the first one is from the Telegram chat, and this is from the Insure team. And we're just going to go through, I guess, some basic housekeeping from the Flow community. And again, I want to thank you for doing this on air with us and whatnot. But they were asking, what's the status of any exchanges? Have we reached out to any other exchanges or to Bittrex to see about expanding that our offerings?
So Bittrex has been a great partner of ours since 2015. They've launched Flow trading pairs for free. We didn't have to pay a listing fee. We didn't have to do any communication with them. They just thought that Flow was a good project. So I think that their policy is probably along the lines of, we're going to decide what happens. So reaching out to them and asking for USDT pair, it's probably not going to lead anywhere. So potentially we could start having more volume on our Flow to Bitcoin trading pair, and then they'll see that and see that it can be expanded to more markets. But I don't think that asking them is going to make a difference. It really comes down to us and doing the work of making sure that Flow is more actively traded and that people find value in Flow, and then everything else will fall into place. And this goes the same for other exchanges. Like if we wanted to get listed on Binance or Huobi or any of the other big three exchanges that people are now using, that has to come from the community first, finding value in Flow, trading Flow, speculating on the value of Flow, and then everything else will fall in line after that. So yeah, I personally, I don't think it's a good use of time to try to reach out to exchanges. You really want them to come to you, because that's the only way that they're going to find that it makes sense from their perspective to spend resources on this. So by the time like you're already at the point where asking them, they'll say yes. It wouldn't matter if you reach out to them anyway.
Okay. And I know that we've done some work. The team has done some work to integrate Flow into the REN protocol, which would open up avenues by creating like a wFLO or a wrapped flow that would live on the Ethereum blockchain and would open up all the DEXs. All the decentralized exchanges would become liquidity available for Flow as well. So to me, you have to make a choice of how do you see the future. Do you see it operating under these big centralized umbrellas, or will it be more of a decentralized exchange in the future? And I think that's probably where things are moving, especially with the Wall Street Bets saga from this week, where they literally shut down the exchange and the ability of people to buy this thing to protect their funds and their business partners. So the world is such an interesting time, because everyone is waking up to the fact that that the world is more tribal and than we realized, and maybe that we wanted, and that people as a kind of a populist body of the average people, that we're going to have to maybe advocate a little bit stronger for the future that we want, or else someone's going to make it for us. So I think you're right on that. If we keep on bringing value to the chain and keep on rolling out new applications and doing a good job of telling people about the benefits of Flow, then everything should fall into place going forward.
Yeah, I think this is where we should focus almost all of our energy, is into decentralized technologies. So if you think about reaching out to anybody, it should be reaching out to the REN team and facilitating that connection with additional technologies that we can work with Flow, and to expand Flow's outreach and potential. So that's the first way that we can make sure that we're supported well by their community. And then that will kind of layer into being able to have a higher amount of volume on exchanges, which will lead into centralized finance exchanges, which have their own benefits and trade-offs, right? So it has to start at the tech level. People have to find it interesting and useful. We have to launch products and continue to compete in the market, and continue to keep up to date with the latest things that are going on, like REN and Wrapped Bitcoin and Wrapped Flow. And then everything else will follow after that. So yeah, I would say that those are pretty much our highest priorities right now: getting REN Flow activated, getting an in with Polkadot or another cross-chain solution that can make Flow tradable and make it activated as a sort of like a middleware on top of other chains, and make it useful in Web3.
So this leads into another question from Saket with Ranchy Mall. And he was asking about wFLO and whether or not it would provide any additional utility, or is this purely like a DEX liquidity play, or kind of getting our foot in the door? But in the future, will being cross compatible on these other chains, will that actually allow us to do more with Flow and getting all this information flowing together?
Yeah, I think that it's two things, right? It's both the liquidity and access for Web3, but it's also an introduction to the new contract capabilities that come along with Polkadot and Avalanche and Ethereum and things like that. So we want to keep the existing Flow as it is, but we also want to expand the additional features of Flow that live on top of other chains and make it compatible with Web3 and give it this new feature set. So you have the choice of either using classic Flow, or you have the choice of using the additional layer of Web3 functionality Flow that will exist on other chains.
Nice. This question comes from Akriti with Ranchy. What measures will you be taking for deploying FLO Blockchain in real-world cases? And what are the parameters that make FLO more reliable than other blockchains?
So we're doing a lot in real world. Actually, if you look at most of the Web3 and the success Web3 has had and in the DeFi marketplace, all of the protocols that are successful in DeFi and Web3 are mostly serving the Web3 community and the crypto community at large. So things like the Graph or Synthetics or any of the big names, Uniswap, like decentralized exchanges, all of these things are serving the in bubble communities and serving the in crypto crowd, which I think is a good bet. If you think you're long crypto, it makes sense to be long crypto native infrastructure. But Flow has actually mostly relied on and been a part of uh, outside of crypto integrations for almost its entire lifetime. For example, with Wyoming, we're putting land records, and with Caltech, we're putting our academic research on the chain. So we do have a lot of in-person flow related things. And also, personally, I would like to see flow used more as a cryptocurrency and used for trade. I've used it for trade throughout its entire lifetime. It's a really great commodity. I think especially with DeFi heating up and people unsure of whether or not a DeFi currency is a commodity or a governance token or a security, it's very easy to look at flow and say, hey, this is something that was mined just like Bitcoin. It was completely fair launch. It just exists as a network that has part of it as a cryptocurrency. So it's much easier to define it, and it's much easier to categorize it and use it as a currency. So I think that there are a lot of ways that flow makes sense to be used in real life, and we've even targeted real life institutions and academic use cases in the past.
Excellent. So, how do you think we get the community to really come together and start advocating for flow and spreading the word? I know it seems that sometimes the criticism is that there's a couple people that do the work within the community, and that everybody else is kind of just tagging you all constantly and asking you to do more. And if we could get over that hurdle, I think it would open up a lot of creative. It would be like there's like this pressure building from within the community to do something, and so I think we just need to kind of steer them in the right direction. You had mentioned earlier that people can go out and spread the word, that someone could reach out to the REN team and advocate for them to go ahead and move that integration forward. The hard work, the coding work has been done on our end. It's really they just need to take a little bit of time to wrap it into their code. And so that would be one obvious thing that the community could do. But is there anything else that you think that you would like to see, as having been on this journey for almost 8 years now and seen the rise and the fall of people coming and going? What would you like to see the community do going forward here to really help carry the torch out there to the world?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is create content. Every project that I've worked on, everything that I've seen in this space has come from content creation. And it doesn't have to be an image or a video or code, although those things are great. Writing is extremely powerful. If you can write something that is an article or is a tweet thread or is just a description of what you think Flow is useful for and how you would use it, and either post that as feedback in the Telegram channel or post it on Twitter or post it on a blog post, that's something that would be super, super helpful. I mean, anyone at this point can make a web page. If you have an idea for Flow or how Flow could be used or an initiative that you want to see like happening in Flow, just make a web page, put up a donation address. People can anonymously fund it. There are many, many ways to make a difference other than asking from a top down, hey, can we do this? Or, can this be done? Just take the initiative and do it yourself and make some content and put some ideas out in the world, and maybe something will catch on. For example, there was a Telegram user, Michael, who was in our flow chat earlier asking about an integration with Filecoin and how we can incentivize IPFS hashes. Personally, I think it's a really great idea, and I had never thought about that. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of a different perspective from someone else's viewpoint to make an idea happen and make something into reality that's extremely valuable for the entire community. I think Flow has around 12,000 members, at least according to Blockfolio and Twitter statistics, and just how many people are trading. That's a lot of people, and I feel like at least one of them has an idea that I don't have, right? Like that's extremely sarcastic. Like, I feel like everyone has ideas, and everyone has good input, and could, make something happen or make an idea move forward. So just contributing and spending some time like thinking about it and putting some content out there, that's what we really need. So yeah, personally, everything comes from content. Content is what's in demand, and content is what makes things valuable. So from my perspective, everyone is able to do that. So there's no reason that they shouldn't be doing it.
All right, Flow community, you've got your marching orders there from the main man. We need to start putting on our work and making content. Somebody could start by transcribing this video. Joey, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. I hope that we can do this again. There's so much more that I'd like to go in depth with. We could do a whole show just on 2013 and 14 and launching Flow. I would love to get into the history and just learn more about the journey that you've been on, and I wish you nothing but the best going forward, and we'll keep following you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Channing. It's been great.
All right.